I'm taking a step back to show you the unfair advantage I used during this year's recruiting cycle. We've all seen those posts on LinkedIn. 2,000 applicants in 1 hour for a software engineer role at Capital One or Leidos. If you're still manually applying to these jobs, you're already too late. In this video, I'll show you how I used Claude Code to create a job hunter that alerts me the second a role drops, how I used it to help me tailor my resume for every single role I applied to, and how I used it to help me mock interview better. Most students apply to 200 plus roles and hope for the best. But at FANG companies with a sub 1% acceptance rate, timing is everything. If you apply within the first couple hours of a job posting, your resume is much more likely to get seen by a real person. I used Claude Code to build the exact board you see on the Landed HQ site. A clean, fast board that shows me what roles are being opened, when they were opened, and gives me a link to apply. I prompted Claude Code, create a web app that makes a job board that pulls from a few different GitHubs and other job tracking sites and alerts me on Discord via Zapier the moment a role opens up. I had it automatically tag roles as SWE, data science, machine learning, or product manager so that I didn't have to waste time categorizing it myself. Because of this, I was one of the first people to apply for a software engineer role at Google, which I ended up getting. While other people were checking LinkedIn or other job posting sites once or twice a day, my agent was always checking once every 5 minutes. Automation isn't about being lazy, it's about being first. When you have a system that doesn't sleep, you're always on top. Let me be honest about something. Even with referrals and a solid interview performance, none of it matters if your resume gets filtered out by ATS before a human even sees it. When I landed Amazon, I had one small startup internship on my resume. That's it. Even though I had a referral, I still had to pass the ATS check on the other side. For this cycle, I wanted to make sure that my resume was as tailored to the role as possible so that I could maximize my chances of getting past the ATS. So for this part, I used normal Claude. I created a project that I titled Resume, and I fed Claude my master resume, which was just my base resume with everything on it as I had initially intended. For each role I was targeting, I'd prompt Claude by pasting in the job description and asking it to analyze it. I'd ask for the 5 most important keywords and the 3 most important skills that were emphasized in this job description. I'd then ask Claude to refactor my resume as it saw fit by cutting bullet points or moving order around and just generally strengthening it to fit that job description better. Claude would then generate a specific version of my resume. It wasn't just swapping keywords in or out, but it was fully restructuring these bullet points to match the job description as well as it could be. For example, for a backend infrastructure role, it would pull my API and database experience to the top. Each version read like I'd written it specifically for that company because functionally Claude had done exactly that. Before I'd finalize anything, I'd run one more prompt. Score this resume against the job description on a 0 to 100 ATS scale. Flag any missing keywords and anything that could be highlighted better. Also suggest where to incorporate these keywords to make it seem as natural as possible. With this prompt, I was consistently hitting 80 to 90% match rates before I submitted an application. Doing this manually, reading a job description, rewriting bullet points, changing up keywords, all of that would take 45 minutes to an hour if you were doing it on your own. But with Claude, all of it took under 5 minutes. That meant that I could put out high quality job applications at the same time it would take for other people to just put spam applications with their generic resume. It gave me the same quantity, but 10 times the quality of other candidates. When I was preparing for Amazon, I ended up getting a little bit lucky because the question that I got in my interview was one that I had studied before because of the LeetCode Premium question bank. For my next set of interviews, I needed something that actually simulated the pressure of a real interview. That feeling when an interviewer is watching you type and you have to tell your thoughts out loud and you have to manage your time, all of that at once. That's a completely different skill from just doing LeetCode on your laptop when nobody's watching. I used Claude Code to turn my local terminal into a full interview environment. It wasn't just a quiz me on data structures chatbot, but an actual timed interactive session that allowed me to practice under those constraints. To start, I fed Claude Code a job description for a role that I was applying to, as well as a set of problems that they may test from. For example, for an infrastructure-focused teams, I told it to focus more on graph traversal problems. My prompt was, act as a senior engineer conducting a 45-minute technical interview. Give me one medium LeetCode style data structures and algorithms problem. I will solve it in my IDE and you provide feedback in real time. Push back when my approach is suboptimal, ask me clarifying questions, and at the end, give me a rubric based on correctness, communication, and overall time management. As I was coding, Claude Code wouldn't just be sitting there silently. It would interrupt me as if it was a real interviewer. It would ask me things like, oh, okay, what's the time complexity of that potential solution? Or how could we go about about this better with less space being consumed. It even gave me edge cases to think about, such as looking out for when an input array may be empty. It even flagged when I got quiet for too long, which is a huge red flag in general interviews. After each session, it gave me a structured breakdown, what I did well, what I could do better, and what to focus on next time. It even recommended follow-up problems based on where I struggled. If I struggled on a sliding window question, it would queue up more problems with that pattern. The gap between knowing how to solve a problem and solving a problem in an actual interview is a lot bigger than people think. Practicing alone doesn't build the muscle memory of explaining your thought process out loud, or handling edge cases under time pressure, or making sure that your approach is the best approach possible while being able to talk through it. By the time I was in my actual interview rounds, I felt a lot more prepared because of my Claude Code mock interviews. If there's one thing that I've learned across all of my recruiting cycles, it's that consistency beats intensity every time. If I were restarting my Leet Code practice over and over and over again, then it would be a lot harder for me to progress than had I just been staying consistent and building my knowledge over time. When you're waiting 6 months for some company to give you an OA, or for some company to respond to you that seemingly ghosted you, you can't waste that time not staying prepped. The only way is to make sure that you continue practicing. The tools have changed, the strategies have evolved, but the core principle is the same as I've talked about in my other videos. You have to treat recruiting like a job. Build systems, automate what you can, and put your time and energy into things that can actually move the needle. Networking, interview prep, and a resume that speaks the company's language. If you want access to the custom Claude Code prompts I used in this video, or if you want to work with me one-on-one to land your dream tech job, check us out at landedhq.dev.